Hello, buddy. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. I hope everybody's having a good day today. Today is Thursday, November 21st, 2024. So, we're going to, of course, people a chance to come in here. But also, before we get started on what's on tap for tonight, so we do have some news, anyways, man, not as crisp as usual. Anyways, so we're just gonna give people a chance to come in. So, I'll put some music on, keep everybody entertained here. Here. All right. So with that, first off, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing if you haven't already, of course, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So let me just do something here real quick. Alrighty then. So with that being said, so here's what's on tap for tonight. Of course, so tonight we're going to be going over the Indie Comic Showcase from Bleeding Fool, from Chris Braley. Also, we'll be doing the Wrestling Rival, getting caught up on, of course, last night's Dynamite. Looking ahead to tonight's Impact, all other news as well. Um, um, and then we'll of course have this day in each history. So with that, why don't we go ahead and let me go grab the article here. Get started on that. All right, so here we go with that. All right, so Indie Comic Showcase number 290, Head Rush and The Long Death. Article by Chris Braley, published November 20th, 2024, which was yesterday. So here we go. Welcome back to another installment of Indie Comic Showcase, the weekly blog where we signal boost a few truly independent comics that are currently crowdfunding their projects, crowdsourcing their funding in some way, or just completely self-publishing on their own. Every little bit of support for these creators matters, from a single dollar pledge to the $25 bundle, and of course, the higher tiers are usually fun too. Even if you can't back a campaign or buy a book, you can share or tweet about these projects. to your friends and followers. On Indie Comic Showcase, we interview the creators, show off some art, and tell you how you can check out the product for yourself. Below, we have some outstanding crowdfunding campaigns this week for you to learn about, enjoy, and hopefully support by backing one or more of them. Thanks for checking these out and for being the best part of Indie Comic Showcase. Let's jump in. So, Head Rush by Harry Simoes. I believe that's how you pronounce the guy's name. Let's see now. So let me go grab the link here so we can get the information on there. Oh, this looks like it's an Indiegogo project. Interesting graphic there. And here's the link if you guys want to go check that out, that book out. There's the link. It's an Indiegogo project, so you might want, if you guys head over there, you can go take a look at it. I guess I should. More seconds there. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the interview here. Head Rush by Harry Simoes. Like set in a time past, as it were. So, Chris Braley, welcome to this week's Indie Comic Showcase, Harry. What's the pitch for Head Rush? Harry Simoes. Teenage twins, James and Jenny, are thrown into a nightmare when their father unburies an ancient evil beneath their farm. Now they must fight this evil and protect their family before Jenny's secrets are exposed to the world. See, I wonder what those are. Chris, very cool. What is the genesis of this tale? Harry, the idea came to me when I was sketching randomly. The idea for the monsters first came to mind, and the larger cast of characters and background stories developed based on articles and historical materials I was reading at the time. Wow, look at that. Chris, what kind of reader is this comic best suited for? Harry, readers who, quote, come for the art and stay for the story, unquote, and are interested in mystery, suspense, and horror. Chris, let's get into the production. I know this is a completely solo effort. Tell me how you approached this book. Harry, I love the detailed art of comic book legends such as Neil Adams, John Byrne, and Arthur Adams. My creative process is to come up with a basic plot line, then plan the scenes that must take place in each page, then pencil sketch the page, then ink it either traditionally or digitally. I will also be coloring and lettering the book in order to keep costs down. So he's trying to keep costs down by basically being a one-man publishing army, basically doing it all, writing, doing the artwork, lettering, coloring, penciling, all that. Chris, what's your production workflow like? Harry, since I am the entire creative team, I will plot, write, sketch, ink, color, and letter everything. The first issue is already plotted. Pages 1 through 10 are inked. Pages 11 through 16 are penciled. I plan on the book being at least 30 pages of story. So that's an interesting task. Let's see now. We continue on here. Chris, what are you learning from crowdfunding through this process? Harry, I am a newbie at all of this, but I've tried to listen to and learn from others who have been successful in their campaigns. Artists with an established reputation from the mainstream seem to have a better chance of drawing attention on YouTube and social media. But it's also encouraging to see that other nobodies, quote unquote, like me, have also had moderate success by promoting on social media and especially by quote unquote under promising and or under promise quote under promising and over delivering unquote. I hope to be able to make my backers happy with a solid book that is delivered on time. Quite a task being a one man show, right? Hmm. Chris, are there more stories to tell? Harry, this book is only the beginning. There is much more to reveal and entertain the reader. In this tale, I hope to continue making as many issues as the backers will support. Chris, anything about the campaign you'd like to mention, or are there any special features you want to point out? Harry, the basic tiers are PDF copies of the book. The feature tier brings in the possibility of a printed version if the campaign goal is met. Um, there are also stretch goal milestones on the way to meeting the campaign goal. And these stretch goals will translate into sticker prizes for the backers. There it is, Head Rush from Marubatsu Comics. Oh, look at that! One girl's got a pumpkin on her head. Chris, great. Anything else before we sign off? Harry, just my appreciation for their support of indie and crowdfunding comics. Chris, I share that. Thanks, Harry. All right, so there we go with that one. Well, that was kind of quick, quick and to the point. So we might actually try to add in, depending upon the time here, we might try to even add in another article because there was one other that did catch my eye. I just wasn't sure, even though I knew this one only had two interviews instead of the usual three. I didn't want to overpromise here. Um, so on to the long death by John Kratky. John Kratky. The long death. Let's go grab that link. And this one's a Kickstarter campaign. And that one just took us straight over to. Okay, so put that down. Oh, this one's a Kickstarter, of course. And if you guys want to go check that out, there it is. There it is. So let's get into the interview here. I can find the cursor, of course. The Long Death by John Kratky. Chris Braley, welcome to Indie Comic Showcase, John. Hit us with the elevator pitch for The Long Death. John Kratky. Think Hansel and Gretel meets the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Two children escape their plague-ridden village through a path in the forest, only to meet a nightmare worse than a witch. An 80-page gothic fairy tale that takes you into the woods and leaves no breadcrumbs behind. Wow, very dark story to say the least, it sounds like. Chris, love it. Where did the idea for this comic come from and made you decide to self-publish it? John, the artist, Anna Wetchik, Weechik, was a big part of the inspiration. We were originally set to work on a previous project together, but it fell through due to prior commitments. I started following her work after that, and her originality of design, imaginative creations, and atmosphere she created through her work inspired me to want to create something specifically for her style. That is where the story started. I was also inspired by the film Night of the Hunter, which stars Robert Mitchum as a psychopathic preacher who is hunting down two children in order to find a hidden stash of cash. The movie is really told from the children's point of view, and it creates a haunting world where adults are not to be trusted. I always wanted to do story from that perspective and create a piece of lost works like a dream. Hmm. Hmm. Chris, what kind of comic reader is this aimed at? Jack? Anybody who loves horror, fairy tale, and ghost stories. Anna's art really creates a gothic horror world, and I think the fairy tale type storytelling will really compel, not compelling, compel people. Um, I'm not trying to create a deconstructive work here, just something new that feels familiar. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, look at the art there. Wow. Quite ominous. Chris, what can you tell me about your creative process and how you developed it? Jack, I almost always start with the characters and build out from there. Usually, I also have a very specific idea that is part of the overriding theme. And that idea um, for this story was quote unquote plague. But would two children who have survived everyone in a time of plague do? Um, what would two who have survived everyone in a time of plague do? Um, if they were now on their own and met a malevolent force, what would happen? Hmm. And walk through the gates of hell if you so choose. I will survive God's wrath, even if it means being a disciple of Satan himself. I will outlive. Chris, introduce our readers to your creative team. Jack, Anna Weechik is the artist on this project, and she is just a pro level illustrator. She has worked on many projects, and there is no doubt that no one look at her art that there's no doubt that one look at her art, and you'll either recognize it from something else she'd worked on, or never forget it. This comic would not be what it is without her. Eduardo Camacho is the letterer on the project. I've worked with him again and again, and I always love what he brings to the table. He's always creating word balloons and finding fonts that work with the project at hand. Sounds like quite a group here. Let's see. And again, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Well, let me go ahead and continue on here with the next part of the interview here. So, Chris, the book is finished, right? What was your production workflow like? Jack, yes, the book is complete. I just need to get the funding for printing. Always write the entire script before starting work on the project. I've learned to do this from mistakes I've made in the past. It actually reminds me of some 30s animation right there. Chris, what have you been learning from crowdfunding through this process? Jack, I've learned that it is never easy, and even when your past projects have been sure things, that doesn't mean that the new one will. You've got to put everything into it. Chris, what are your plans beyond this book? Jack, this book is part of a series of horror comics I want to do titled quote unquote Forgotten Folklore. They are standalone graphic novels that take place in an older time. And familiar locations, but outside our realm. A place where devils and men walk the earth, but neither are the heroes in the journey. There is another graphic novel on offer in this campaign titled, quote, The Goblet at the Black Oak, unquote, which is also part of the Forgotten Folklore series. It is about a bartender who breaks goblin law and is marked for all monsters to punish in their own way. Next year, I will start releasing a new series of noir crime comics with Michelle Lodge, who I've worked with in the past on Home Free and The Black Wall. So I guess some more stuff to look forward to. Oh, look at that. The bad guy holding an apple there. Chris, any special features on this campaign we need to mention? Jack, I have some very cool original rewards on this campaign, including a collaboration with a beautiful Instagram model named the Devil's Little Sister, as well as Halloween decorations designed after the villains of The Long Death, created by artist Tobias Genbart. So I'm taking it that maybe this interview was done prior to Halloween. uh, Anyways. All right. So, Kristen asks, anything else you'd like to share with our readers before we sign off? Jack, if you love horror of all types, there is no doubt you will love this comic. I hope it reaches many fans um, of the genre and becomes something memorable and meaningful for them. Chris, and then good luck, John. Um, it looks great. I thought his name was Jack, but I guess it was. That's it for this installment. If you're a creator ramping up your own campaign or have a comic available for purchase online and you want to be featured in our weekly column, click here and follow Indie Comic Showcase on Twitter. I think it's X now at Indie Comics, and reach out to them for more eyes on your crowdfunding comic project. Until next time, support Indie Comics. All right, so there we go with that one. And since there were only 2 interviews in that segment, I think we do have time to get in one more story here. And there was actually one that grabbed my attention for this one that came out today. Will old-fashioned superhero comics ever make a comeback? Let's take a look at this one. Quote article by Avi Green, our old buddy Avi. And it was published today, the 21st. Strongman from ME Comics. All right, so let's take a look here. This is Avi speaking here, of course. Recently, a columnist for Villages News of Florida wondered if it's time to bring back old-fashioned comic heroes following the recent U.S. election. And this is from the article that he's referencing, of course. I haven't written one of these musings for some time. I guess all the various political information missiles got me down, wondering how people could write such misleading quote-unquote facts and expect the voters to buy the comments are clearly true. Unfortunately, we will now listen to similar after the election comments. I just hope that those unfortunate college students and faculty recover from their disappointment so that the students can graduate, the faculty can grow up. Oh boy, ouch. Ouch. The whole mess makes me wonder sometimes why I learned to read. Of course, when I was young, you had to essentially learn to read, as back then, that's how you got most of your information. Alas, there was no TV or social media available. Well, even with social media, though, you kind of have to more or less read, if with post at least. It took longer for news to get around then, which was good in many ways, as it stopped copycats from shooting more people, which is a very good example. I decided this morning that I needed to go back to my early days of reading to calm my ancient mind. I taught myself to read by perusing the daily comic strips. Now, granted, the whole concept of using comic books to learn how to read is not a new concept. It's actually been used quite before. Some of you who've been around a while probably heard me refer to a TV movie back, I think, from the 90s or what have you, that starred Michael Tucker and Jill Eikenberry, called A Town Torn Apart, where the whole idea of using comic books to teach some kids to read was actually part of the story. Anyways, I would then inform my parents of what was occurring in the strips at dinner time. Finally, my mother asked my dad how I knew all about what was happening in the strips. He naturally replied that even though I was only 5, I was reading them. That's how I knew I had become a reader. With that information in my still developing brain, I branched out to comic books, which were becoming very popular. Back then, comic books were 64 pages for a dime. Wow, so we're talking about back in the golden age of comics, right? Back in 30s, 40s, 50s, there, the early 50s. So, wow. Naturally, others saw an advantage in a book that was 32 pages for a nickel. Um, in fact, one of them was called Nickel Comics. That was Fawcett came out with Nickel Comics. Was that after prior to their move to Master Comics. Nickel Comics was where Captain Marvel Jr. and Bullet Man were both featured early on when they made their debuts. Its main hero was Strongman. He was pretty indestructible, but he couldn't fly. Therefore, to get places, he would hop on cannon shells and ride them to where he wanted to go. Finally, luckily, the cannons were always pointed in the right direction. Strongman shouldn't have been too upset, as Superman could not fly either back then. As many of you know, we've talked about this before. Originally, Superman was hopping around; he wasn't really flying. It wasn't until I think the Fleischer cartoons that they actually had him start to fly. He could leap tall buildings in a single bound, but no flying. The flying came later, so maybe if Strongman's creators had persisted, he might have learned to fly too. However, there were too many comic book heroes to follow to worry about Strongman. There were heroes galore and copycats of heroes. Everyone knows Batman and Robin. There were many copycats of them which failed for one reason or another. One of the oddest was Mr. Scarlet and Pete. This guy was obviously a Fawcett reader. This guy probably has quite a rich collection of Fawcett comics. Nickel Comics, Mr. Skull and Pinky were a backup feature in WoW Comics, which, of course, the lead feature in that was Mary Marvel. So, they caught villains too, most of whom were probably doubling over in laughter at the costumes worn by the good guys. Yeah, the whole idea of Mr. Scarlet and Pinky, they were kind of a poor man's version of Batman and Robin. Mr. Scarlet was a public defender, and of course Pinky was his public defender Brian Butler, and then Pinky was his adopted son. So go figure. Kind of the poor man's version of Batman and Robin there. I was never sure how the creators expected boys who read most of the comic books to relate to superheroes in Scarlet and Pink. I guess, as I mused about above, some writers believe that people will accept anything. Unfortunately, and this is all still from the article that Avi's referencing, of course. Unfortunately, these last folks are perhaps correct. The last few years obviously shows that I would expect that the same tendency will continue for many years into the future. That is not really a good situation. So I might be good if more expressions So it might be good if more expressions could could be made in comic book form. Who knows? Strongman might make a comeback. Strongman, the superhero that is not a socialist dictator. All right. And that right there is, I believe, the Phantom from. So now we're back. Now we're back to. Now we're back to Avi here. And Avi's choosing. All right, so let's get back to the article here. Okay, so on that note, I hope he's not alluding to Donald Trump. Though if the columnist is a leftist, it sure would be weird if he really does believe socialism's a bad ideology, considering how much the left sold out to communism over the past decade or so. But if the guy really thinks superheroes should make a comeback, it'll only happen if the old-fashioned positive values are respected, and it sure won't happen so long as DC Marvel are under corporate ownership. As things stand now, maybe the columnist would do well to look at the situation under a magnifying glass and actually write about what's gone wrong with superhero there in the mainstream. Then we'd actually be getting somewhere. And as for pink outfits, well, I am aware that in addition to Mr. Scarlet's adopted son Pinky, Lee Falk's Phantom was created wearing a purple leotard during the Golden Age. And yes, that too is outdated. But I can't seem to recall many examples of male heroes other than them wearing pink or pink and purple. What I do recall is Saturn Girl from the Legion of Superheroes wearing the color pink in the Bronze Age. And for heroines, such a color shade is a lot more suited, if that even matters. All right, so there we go. So there we go with that. So we're coming up on 40 minutes here. So now we'll get ready to move on to the wrestling wrap-up. Let me see. And some WWE news, of course. Jey Uso, in a recent interview, was saying that he might want a possible Uso versus Uso 2 match at WrestleMania 41, having another battle with his brother to show people what they felt they can do, as he felt that they couldn't really show people what, due to the storyline, all that, couldn't really show people what they could do in that match. Now getting ready to move on to AEW news. First up, before we even talk about what happened on last night's Dynamite, Toni Storm recently, in the last few days here, in an interview, made an announcement that she was retiring from pro wrestling. Now, granted, apparently she hasn't told Tony Khan this. Now, mind you, the retirement, as some columnists had put it, was in quotations. And when I looked at the story, when I read about the story too, I saw the way she was wording it, it seemed more like what is known in in professional wrestling as a work. In other words, it's possible she's retiring so that she can make a big comeback to take the AEW Women's World Title off of Mariah May at some point. Now, whether or not that's true, I can't tell you. Just all I can say is, keep looking out for it. And also, Saraya. There's talk that Saraya may be coming back soon, and in that, she may have a somewhat of a new look to her. Looking to make her return. So, with that being said, let's go and take a quick look. Let me talk about what happened on last night's Dynamite. As the show opened up with an 8-man tag match in which the Don Callis family of Lance Archer, Ring of Honor World Television Champion Brian Cage, Kyle Fletcher, and AEW International Champion Konosuke Takeshita defeated the 4 men of Mark Davis, Powerhouse Hobbs, Will Ospreay, and Ricochet. Now, of course, Ospreay and Fletcher are set to face off against each other at this Saturday's Full Gear as well, and we'll go over the full card tomorrow on tomorrow's show. And also, I believe, I don't know if it's been signed yet, but I believe Takeshita might also be defending the international title against Ricochet. So look forward to, gotta look forward. In the second match of the evening, Chris Statlander, as she continues to prepare for a match for a shot at the TBS title held by Taylor Monet, took on Hikaru Shida and defeated Hikaru Shida, continuing to build her momentum for this Saturday's pay-per-view. Bobby Lashley, in his first in-ring act, making his debut with first official in-ring action since making his debut with AEW, with, of course, the other members of the Hurt Syndicate in his corner, took on 2 men of Cheeseburger and Joe Keys, defeated them by referee's decision. Claudio Castagnoli defeated Darby Allin in a singles match. And Orange Cassidy continued to build momentum for his upcoming AEW World Title shot at Jon Moxley, defeated Wheeler Yuta. So that's all we got from AEW. Now to talk about what's going on tonight's Impact. Tonight's Impact will, of course, be on Access TV. And on that show, as soon as I find it, of course. The opening match will see Rhino taking on Frankie Kazarian. In a 6-man tag match, Ace Austin and the Hardys, Ace Austin and the TNA World Tag Team Champions, the Hardys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, will be taking on Hammerstone, Trent Seven, and Jake Something. Ash by Elegance takes on Jody Threat, as Ash will be accompanied to the ring by her personal concierge and Heather by Elegance, and Jody Threat will be accompanied to the ring by Danny Luna. And in a match for the no disqualification match for the Knockout the World title, Masha Slamovich defends the belt against Alicia Edwards, with the winner set to defend the title against Jordan Grace, and Grace's contractual rematch coming up at next Friday's Turning Point. So that's all we got for you in terms of the wrestling wrap-up. Of course, if you guys haven't already, you guys can like and share the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage it. Appreciate it. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So now, with today being, of course, Thursday, November 21st, 2024, let's take a look back at this day in each history. So let me just take a quick 2007, 1964, 1993, or 94 rather, and 2009. Alrighty then. Alright, so first off, I'd like to wish a happy 60th birthday to four-time ECW World Heavyweight Champion Shane Douglas. Shane Douglas, a longtime veteran, of course, had wrestled for companies, including, started out in the Mid-South Territory, back in the 80s, and would have multiple stints in WCW, WWF, and of course, probably his most successful runs were in ECW, where, as I said, he was a four-time ECW World Heavyweight Champion, a former ECW World Television Champion, and he also is a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and probably what is considered one of the most controversial incidences in professional wrestling history, as back on October 27th, 1994, after winning the NWA World title, he promptly vacates it, claiming he does not want to be the champion of a dead organization, and elevating the ECW World title to world title status. So happy 60th birthday to Shane Douglas. As we get ready to move on to the next piece of niche history here. As we now move along to 1994, 30 years ago today. As on this date, 30 years ago today, back in 1994, premiering in syndication, a Flintstones Christmas Carol, which was basically Hanna-Barbera's Flintstones adaptation of Charles Dickens' 1843 novel or novella of Christmas Carol, featuring the voices, of course, of Henry Corden as Fred Flintstone, Gene Vanderbilt as Wilma, Frank Welker as Dino, among others. On this date, 30 years ago today, a Flintstones Christmas Carol, which was recently shown on MeTV Tunes as part of their "'Tis the Season for Tunes." "'Tis the Season for Tunes." Anyways, as it was recently shown a few weeks ago as part of "'Tis the Season for Tunes" on MeTV Tunes. Now, moving ahead to 2007, which was 17 years ago today. On this date, 17 years ago today, the first issue of Angel After the Fall from IDW went on sale on this date back in 2007, 17 years ago. Sold for $3.99, was 32 pages. The story was called After the Fall Chapter 1, plotted by Joss Whedon. Brian Lynch did the writing, with art by Franco Umu. Robbie Robbins did the lettering, and the coloring was done by Ilaria controversy. Excuse me a moment, folks. I'm going to need to step away from the computer here for a moment. I'm done. I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that, folks. Just had to step away from the computer for a moment. So now, let's get ready to. Let me get back to. So finally, on this date back in 2009, which was of course 15 years ago today. On this date, 15 years ago today, 8-bit and satellites May Cross Frontier, the False Songstress premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2009, so 15 years ago today. 8 bits and satellites May Cross Frontier, the False Songstress, premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2009, 15 years ago. So with that, I do thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here tomorrow night with more niche news, of course. Don't forget, this Sunday, I'll have Rick Piper joining me, as we'll be looking at comics that went on sale in April of 1940 from, in this case, from Harvey Comics. But, Harvey wasn't established yet. So we'll be looking at Speed Comics Volume 1, Issue 9, and Champion Comics Volume 1, Issue 8. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see you all back here tomorrow. Bye!